Namaskar. A warm welcome to World News and Indian Perspective on All India Radio. This is Gaurav Sharma and with me is Abhineet Shukla bringing glimpses of the major developments of the day from across the globe. Over the next half an hour, we shall bring you the latest from the world of politics, economy, sports, entertainment and more. Let's take a look at the headlines first. India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi to hold virtual meeting with US President Joe Biden on Monday. Focus will be on bilateral cooperation, recent developments in South Asia, Indo-Pacific region and global issues of mutual interest. India-US 2+2 ministerial dialogue to take place in Washington on Monday. Defence Minister Rajnath Singh and External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar to lead the Indian delegation. Pakistan Parliament to elect the new Prime Minister on Monday. PMLN President Shehbaz Sharif and Shah Mahmood Qureshi of PTI file their nomination papers. In Australia, Prime Minister Scott Morrison calls for federal elections on the 21st of May. Protests against price rise of essential items and fuel continue in Sri Lanka. Thousands take part in a rally in Colombo. And in the Indian Premier League, Delhi Capitals defeat Kolkata Knight Riders by 44 runs. Rajasthan Royals set a victory target of 166 runs before Lucknow Super Giants in Mumbai. India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi will hold a virtual meeting with the US President Joe Biden on Monday. The External Affairs Ministry said that the two leaders will review the ongoing bilateral cooperation and exchange views on recent developments in South Asia, the Indo-Pacific region, and global issues of mutual interest. We have a report.
The virtual meeting will enable both sides to continue their regular and high-level engagement aimed at further strengthening the bilateral comprehensive global strategic partnership. The leaders' virtual interaction will precede the fourth India-US 2+2 ministerial dialogue, which will get underway in Washington on Monday. Defence Minister Rajnath Singh and External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar will lead the Indian delegation. The US delegation will be led by Secretary of State Antony Blinken and Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin. The dialogue would enable both sides to undertake a comprehensive review of cross-cutting issues in the India-US bilateral agenda related to foreign policy, defense and security, with the objective of providing strategic guidance and vision for further consolidating the relationship. The 2+2 dialogue mechanism will also provide an opportunity to exchange views about important regional and global developments. External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar will also meet his US counterpart Secretary Blinken separately. He is scheduled to meet senior members of the US administration to further advance the India-US Comprehensive Global Strategic Partnership. Our correspondent reports that this year's event will celebrate 75 years of diplomatic relations and reaffirm the importance of India-US Comprehensive and Global Strategic Partnership in ensuring international peace and security. It will reaffirm the shared commitment to a free, open and prosperous Indo-Pacific region. The inaugural India-US Ministerial 2+2 dialogue was held in September 2018 in New Delhi. The then US Secretary of State Michael Pompeo and Secretary of Defense James Mattis visited India for the dialogue with the then External Affairs Minister Sushma Swaraj and Defense Minister Nirmala Sitharaman. 3 rounds of the dialogue have been held so far. India and US enjoy a comprehensive global strategic partnership covering almost all areas driven by shared democratic values, convergence of interests and vibrant people-to-people contact. Reshma Tiwari for World News, All India Radio.
India's agri-exports have crossed $50 billion for the year 2021-22, notwithstanding logistical challenges posed by COVID-19 pandemic. Agricultural and Processed Food Products Export Development Authority, APEDA, has scripted a new history by exporting agricultural and processed food products to the tune of $25.6 billion, which is 51% of the India's total agriculture exports of $50 billion. Besides, the APEDA has also surpassed its own export target of $23.7 billion for the financial year 2021-22 by registering shipment of $25.6 billion. As per the provisional figures released by DGCI and S, the agricultural exports have grown by 19.92% during 2021-22 to touch $50.21 billion.
In Pakistan, the National Assembly session to elect the new Premier will be held on Monday. The National Assembly will vote on April the 11th to elect Imran Khan's successor. PMLN President Shehbaz Sharif has submitted his nomination papers for the post of the Prime Minister in the National Assembly. Foreign Minister Shah Mahmood Qureshi from Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf Party has also submitted papers as the candidate of the Prime Minister. The nominations came a day after Imran Khan was removed from the post of Prime Minister after losing the no-confidence vote in the 342-member Pakistan National Assembly. Imran Khan became the first Pakistani Prime Minister to be removed after losing the no-confidence motion in the Assembly. In his first reaction since his ouster as the Prime Minister, Mr. Khan on Sunday said that even though the country became an independent state in 1947, the freedom struggle has begun again against a foreign conspiracy of regime change. The Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf Party chief has alleged foreign conspiracy responsible for toppling his government on several occasions. The opposition got 174 votes against the majority mark of 172 in the 342-member Pakistan Assembly. Meanwhile, the Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf Party decided to submit en masse resignations in the National Assembly. In a tweet on Sunday, the senior party leader Fawad Chaudhry announced that the PTI has decided to resign from the assemblies, and this process will start from the National Assembly after the election of the Prime Minister on Monday.
In today's Hotspot section, we bring you a discussion on developments in Pakistan and its implications. In conversation are Yogendra Kumar, former ambassador, and Manas Pratim Bhuyan, journalist.
Ambassador Kumar, we have seen a massive political turmoil in Pakistan. Pakistan's Prime Minister Imran Khan has been ousted from power after he lost the no-confidence vote. We have seen how the vote was held past midnight following days of drama and persistent attempts by Imran Khan to block the motion, as he had recommended dissolving the parliament, and parliament was actually dissolved by the president. But Sunday's vote took place after the country's Supreme Court ruled in favor of opposition parties' demand to have the no-confidence motion at the National Assembly. And following Khan's action, in fact, we have seen how Khan was accused of unconstitutionally trying to, avoid the no-confidence motion. How do you see the overall events in Pakistan that led to Imran Khan's ouster from power? We will definitely discuss the events after the no-confidence motion in the later part of the discussion. But I would like your view about the events that unfolded in Pakistan in the last 7 days. How do you see it? And what does it mean for Pakistan's internal polity, Pakistan's future, and overall impact of the events on Pakistan?
The turmoil actually had intensified, and it came to a climax in the passage of the no-confidence motion against the former Prime Minister Imran Khan. So in one way, it does presage the kind of turmoil which one has to see as to how it will actually settle. Because when reads the more recent events, one of course is that after the passage of the no confidence vote against Imran Khan's party and Imran Khan, then the candidates' names were suggested and proposed. One, of course, from the opposition was Shehbaz Sharif, and then from the Imran Khan's party of Shah Mahmood Qureshi as a candidate. Let's say there are two candidates who actually will have to then seek majority vote in the National Assembly. Now, Qureshi's candidature was rejected, and Shehbaz Sharif is the only one whose candidature has been accepted. So one can take it that he would get the confidence vote on Monday when the Assembly actually convenes. So the point here is that, then the PTI now, which are now the opposition, they actually are saying that they'll challenge it further, and they're actually saying that they might actually, in fact, now go and they're calling that the members of the Assembly who actually, National Assembly, belong to the PTI, they would resign. And the idea, of course, is that they would create some kind of a constitutional crisis. It might actually mean that if, let us say, when they resign and the elections are held for those seats which have fallen vacant, that will be a kind of a test of the new government's, let's say, popularity or capacity and so on and so forth. So as of now, it does appear to me that the situation actually is quite dramatic and somewhat fluid, but we'll all have to wait and see, because one is seeing reports in the papers that Imran Khan was trying to actually remove the chief of the army staff, something which actually happened in the past also at one time, and Shehbaz Sharif tried to do that before his ouster. And that, in fact, a petition was filed in the Islamabad High Court on behalf of one of the lawyers to say that any such notification issued by the Prime Minister would have to be sort of rejected because for purported reasons of not following the constitutional procedure for the removal of the Chief of the Army Staff. So in one way what you find is that there is a kind of even within the army, a certain amount of turmoil which you find because Imran Khan actually had conveyed his preference in favor of the former Director General ISI, that is General Faiz Hamid, who actually was grooming to become the Chief of the Army Staff. And the fact that this kind of a tension actually did get reflected in the army leadership itself. Now, that has settled to a certain extent. But what actually it means, one doesn't actually quite know, frankly, because I said that things are somewhat uncertain at this time. And as we all know, the Chief of the Army Staff, General Bajwa, actually his term ends in October and November. So, and even the possibility that the army might just intervene at that time to prevent any such precipitate step on the part of now the former Prime Minister. So what I'm trying to say is that things remain quite turbulent at the moment in Pakistani politics. We just have to wait and see.
Mr. Kumar, in fact, since coming to power in 2018, we have seen Imran Khan taking a strong anti-US position, and he openly expressed his desire to move closer to China and Russia. He recently visited Russia. Actually, on the day Russia began its attack on Ukraine, Mr. Khan was in Moscow and he held talks with President Vladimir Putin. So how do you see Imran Khan building up the anti-America rhetoric and then accusing the US of trying to topple his government quite openly? He has been making these allegations. How do you see Imran Khan's political calculation?
Well, yes. In fact, the foreign policy, in fact, it always is the case with Pakistan, particularly in terms of the foreign policy choices exercised by the leader, including in this case the army. And if you read the reports about the cable by the former Pakistani ambassador to US, his conversation with the current Assistant Secretary of State dealing with Pakistan and South Asian Central Asia, and that it's locally stated that she said that if Imran Khan continues to be the Prime Minister, it will have adverse implications for Pakistan-US relations. This is actually a very difficult decision for a country which is actually facing a severe economic crisis. And one doesn't know. I mean, as you know, that Imran Khan actually has been inclined or supportive of the Taliban and actually has been inclined to support some of these elements, radical elements in Pakistan. So whether it suggests a certain shift or major political trend inside Pakistan, greater salience of the extremist elements in Pakistan. So how that will impact on the Pakistani domestic politics? For the moment, I would only say this, that given the turbulence which is there, the political turbulence primarily, but also it's a manifestation of economic turbulence in Pakistan is facing, that stability in Pakistan still remains a kind of a, let's say, it'll take quite a while, frankly.
Mr. Kumar, in fact, Shehbaz Sharif has filed his nomination to become the Prime Minister of Pakistan, and the vote is likely to take place on Monday. So how do you see his nomination for the post of Pakistan's Prime Minister?
Well, as I said that, it's a difficult time for Pakistan. And as I said that, the opposition, Imran Khan's PTI party, now they're saying that tomorrow also the day when their special court in Lahore is most likely going to indict Shehbaz Sharif, Hamza Sharif, who has formally meant to play a very prominent role in the Punjab politics, that they might actually be indicted for a money laundering case, which actually is a substantial amount of money. So the point actually, that's the argument with the PTI is making, that on the day when Shehbaz Sharif is going to be sworn in as the Prime Minister of Pakistan, on the same day, a Lahore special court indicting him for, on a money laundering case, he and his son and several other people. So obviously, it's a very awkward situation. So in a way, this kind of a tension, the turmoil still continues. So frankly speaking, one will actually have to wait and see.
Final question, Ambassador Kumar. In fact, do you see any implications for regional security from what is happening in Pakistan? We have seen some political instability in Sri Lanka. We have seen definitely the situation in Afghanistan is very, very worrying. And now the political instability in Pakistan. So do you think these issues, these turmoils are a matter of concern for the regional stability and security?
Well, actually they are. And each situation is different, but we should also remember, apart from Afghanistan, Pakistan, and Sri Lanka, we should also not forget Myanmar. So what you find that there are at least 3 countries which are experiencing extreme political uncertainty and fragility, and also economic fragility. So what kind of challenges arise from there? That's something we actually have to wait and watch, what cost it might impose on us. Because as you know that India has been quite generous in extending the hand of friendship and support to Sri Lanka at this time. And we have been also quite, let's say, somewhat careful about how we are going to treat or approach Myanmar. Now the point is that each fragile situation throws up its own challenges. And in the case of Pakistan, the challenges normally are, rising profile of the extremist elements. So that is something because, let's say, they always are there to act as spoiler. If you remember, Prime Minister had made a historic visit when he made a stopover in Lahore to personally greet Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif and his mother. And a few days after that outreach by him and that attempt from our side to open with Pakistan, we had the Pathankot or terror attack. So that element of volatility and uncertainty in, let's say, the policy of the government, which is inherently fragile, that is a factor which we have to take into account as we actually see as to how we secure our region in terms of our security. And then there are other challenges. The global warming is a very big challenge. In fact, now there's a report I was reading that in Pakistan might be facing a serious power and water crisis. Because, the main dam, the Mangla Dam, the water level is very low. And you hear the gas supply in Karachi actually is depleting or actually very severely. So, there are these kind of challenges which actually create a situation of instability. Because, ultimately, the question of governance. Whichever leader is in power, the people expect better governance and improvement in their conditions. So, if these are structural factors complicating a political situation and economic situation, the disaffection with the leader also arises quite fast. And the possibility of some kind of a black swan event, so to say, and all these factors, they always are there and we reckon with them. And the fact also, of course, in the case of Pakistan, with its history of these Islamic radical elements, the jihadi elements, suddenly emerging, and salience, in the activities in either Pakistan or in the border areas, and those kinds of situations, I think we all have to watch very carefully. So I think our leadership is watching it very carefully. We'll have to see as to how we have to feel our way forward. As things, the way things shape up in Pakistan.
Thank you, Ambassador Kumar, for a detailed perspective about the political turmoil in Pakistan and its implication for Pakistan as well as for the region. Thank you so very much.
Thank you.
UK Prime Minister and Austrian Chancellor on Sunday joined the stream of European leaders showing their support for Ukraine by travelling to the nation's capital for face-to-face meetings with President Volodymyr Zelensky. British Prime Minister Boris Johnson has held talks in Kyiv with President Zelensky. Following the meeting, his office said that the UK will send 120 armoured vehicles and anti-ship missile systems to support Ukraine. In a statement after the meeting, Mr. Johnson paid tribute to President Zelensky's resolute leadership and the invincible heroism and courage of the Ukrainian people. Mr. Johnson also confirmed further economic support. Austrian Chancellor Karl Nehammer met with Mr. Zelensky earlier today and pledged that the EU would continue to ratchet up sanctions against Russia until the war stops. European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen was in Kyiv on Friday following earlier visits from the Czech, Polish and Slovenian Prime Ministers.
This is All India Radio giving you the news. For quick news updates round the clock, follow us on Twitter at AIR News Alerts.
In Australia, Prime Minister Scott Morrison has called a federal election on the 21st of May. At present, Morrison's ruling coalition holds 76 seats in the House of Representatives. Opinion polls suggested that there will be a change of government, with the opposition Labour Party led by Anthony Albanese tipped to take office. However, in the last election, Scott Morrison won despite most polls predicting otherwise. Morrison is the first leader to serve a full term in office since John Howard, who won 4 elections before losing to Labour's Kevin Rudd in 2007.
In Sri Lanka, protests against price rise of essential items and fuel are continuing, with thousands rallying in the capital Colombo on Saturday. Earlier, cash-strapped Sri Lanka's central bank hiked interest rates by a record 700 basis points on Friday. Severe shortage of food and fuel alongside long electricity blackouts have led to weeks of widespread anti-government demonstrations with calls for resignation of President Gotabaya Rajapaksa.
Bangladesh science teacher Hridoy Chandra Mondol was granted bail by a Munshi-Ganj court on Sunday. Hridoy Mondol was arrested on March the 22nd based on a complaint that he had insulted Islam while discussing the difference between science and religion with students in the school. The conversation was secretly recorded and a complaint lodged with the police on March the 20th against him. Earlier, his bail petition was rejected twice on March the 23rd and March the 28th. The issue had created a big uproar in the country.
In the Indian Union Territory of Jammu and Kashmir, 2 Pakistani terrorists were neutralized by security forces in a gunfight that broke out between terrorists and security forces in the heart of Srinagar city on Sunday. Kashmir Zone Police said that both the slain terrorists were involved in the recent terror attack on CRPF personnel in Srinagar. Incriminating materials, including arms and ammunition, have also been recovered from their possession.
India's Home and Cooperative Minister Amit Shah inaugurated Seema Darshan project at Nada Bet, located on the Indo-Pak border in the Banaskantha district of Gujarat on Sunday. Speaking on this occasion, Mr. Shah said that this multi-purpose tourism project was completed under the direct guidance of Prime Minister Narendra Modi. He said that India is achieving new heights in the world because of BSF Jawans guarding our borders.
In Ethiopia, at least 17 people were killed in road accident in the central Oromia regional state on Sunday. Local officials said the traffic accident happened when a transport bus carrying an unspecified number of passengers skidded off the road and overturned, also injuring several others. Police are currently investigating the causes of the traffic accident.
A SpaceX capsule carrying 3 paying customers and a former NASA astronaut arrived at the International Space Station on Saturday, finishing the first leg of this first-of-its-kind mission that will last about 10 days. The AX-1 mission, which was organized by Houston company Axiom Space, was launched on Friday. The mission is flying on the SpaceX Crew Dragon Endeavour. The mission was launched from the Kennedy Space Center in Florida. The spacecraft, which separated from the rocket after reaching the orbit, spent about 20 hours free-flying through the orbit as it maneuvered closer to the ISS. The trip was brokered by the Houston, Texas-based startup Axiom Space, which seeks to book rocket rides, provide all the necessary training, and coordinate flights to the ISS.
Ram Navami is being celebrated with religious fervor and enthusiasm in different parts of India on Sunday. The festival marks the birth of Lord Ram, the 7th incarnation of Lord Vishnu, to King of Ayodhya Dashrath and Queen Kaushalya. Devotees visit temples to pay their respects, read sacred verses from the Ramayana, and participate in bhajan and kirtan. President Ramnath Kovind, Vice President M. Venkaiah Naidu, and Prime Minister Narendra Modi have extended greetings and best wishes to all the citizens on this occasion.
In the Indian Premier League, chasing a victory target of 166 runs set by the Rajasthan Royals, the Lucknow Super Giants were 97 for 5 in 15 overs at the Wankhede Stadium in Mumbai when reports last came in. Rajasthan made 165 for 6 in the stipulated 20 overs. Earlier, Lucknow won the toss and opted to field. In an earlier match, the Delhi Capitals defeated the Kolkata Knight Riders by 44 runs at the Brabourne Stadium in Mumbai. Chasing a target of 216 runs, the Kolkata Knight Riders were all out for 171 runs in 19.4 overs.
In the World Doubles Squash Championships, India's Deepika Pallikal, teaming up with Saurav Ghoshal and Joshna Chinnappa, has won mixed doubles and women's doubles titles at Glasgow on Saturday. Deepika Pallikal and Saurav Ghoshal, seeded second, defeated the 4th-seeded English pair Adrian Warner and Ellison Waters 11-6, 11-8 in the final to claim the mixed doubles title, becoming India's first ever world doubles squash champions. Later, Pallikal paired up with Joshna Chinnappa to claim the women's doubles title. With this win, Deepika doubled India's and her own world championships medal count.
And now let us take a look at the major developments around the world as reported in the foreign press. Let us take a look at the press reports on China. Chinese social media Weibo is full of frustrated cries of help, where Shanghai residents complain about lack of food, medicine and other essentials and haphazard lockdown measures.
Hindustan Times writes, a Tibetan parliamentary delegation has been meeting Indian MPs and political leaders this week with the focus on interactions with lawmakers from the northeastern states to discuss China's hydro hegemony by controlling waters of cross-border rivers such as the Brahmaputra.
And now let us have a look at what made headlines in Nepal. According to the Republica, Nepal Assembly Chairman Ganesh Prasad Timilsina on Saturday said that the public should not vote for the political parties that are looking to secure a victory at any cost in the upcoming local level elections.
The Republica writes that Chairman of Rashtriya Prajatantra Party (RPP), Rajendra Lingden, has alleged the major political parties including Nepali Congress NC, CPN UML and CPN Maoist Centre had failed to run the country.
Now let us have a look at the press reports on Pakistan. The Dawn writes that the opposition's no-trust motion against Prime Minister Imran Khan succeeded an hour past midnight on Sunday, with 174 members in the 342-strong House voting in favour of the resolution.
The Geo News reports PMLN President Shehbaz Sharif said that the joint opposition, once it forms a government in the centre, would not take revenge against their political opponents.
Now let us have a look at the press reports on Balochistan. In Balochistan, the Pakistan Army has started an operation in the Kalkor area of the Panjgur district on Saturday morning. Helicopters also took part in the operation as well as infantry troops. According to the Balochistan Post, the military operation was continued till the last report, and 3 people have gone missing after being detained during the operation. Now let's have a look at what made headlines in Afghanistan. Pajwok reports that ex-President Hamid Karzai has asked the Taliban administration to heed religious scholars' demand for reopening schools for girls.
Now let's have a look what made headlines in Bangladesh. The Bangladesh Commerce Ministry has decided to launch a real-time app for monitoring the import, production and marketing of essential commodities to keep their prices stable, reports Daily Star.
Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina has asked the police force of Bangladesh to earn people's trust through humanitarian work, reports the Business Standard. And before we end, a quick look at the headlines once again. India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi to hold virtual meeting with US President Joe Biden on Monday. Focus will be on bilateral cooperation, recent developments in South Asia, Indo-Pacific region and global issues of mutual interest. India-US 2+2 ministerial dialogue to take place in Washington on Monday. Defence Minister Rajnath Singh and External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar to lead the Indian delegation. Pakistan Parliament to elect the new Prime Minister on Monday. PMLN President Shehbaz Sharif and Shah Mahmood Qureshi of PTI file their nomination papers. In Australia, Prime Minister Scott Morrison calls for federal elections on the 21st of May. Protests against price rise of essential items and fuel continue in Sri Lanka. Thousands take part in a rally in Colombo. And in the Indian Premier League, Delhi Capitals defeat Kolkata Knight Riders by 44 runs. Rajasthan Royals set a victory target of 166 runs before Lucknow Super Giants in Mumbai.
And now before we end, let us listen to Mahatma Gandhi's favourite bhajan Vaishnav Jan by artists from Indonesia.
And with that, we end this bulletin. We'll be back at the same time tomorrow with the next edition of World News.